Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Christy Vo, and why being overwhelmed isn't a badge of honor, and how you can have habits for balance and joy. Hi, Alex.
Hey
Uh,
there.
yes, thank you for joining. How about you introduce yourself? Uh,
Hey, well, thanks for having me. And my name's Alex Stark. I'm a licensed therapist and executive coach, working specifically with women who are executives, business owners, and entrepreneurs who are struggling with burnout.
yes, yes. So I'm thrilled that we're going to have this conversation. We're going to talk about how, what does be feeling overwhelmed mean, what leads to burnout, and what are the signs for burnout, and then maybe some tips and strategy on how to uh, incorporate our micro habits or habits to have a balanced life. Before we dive in, what's one small thing that brought you joy this week?
I did a live cooking class with my 10-year-old daughter, and
Oh,
she loves to cook and she's super into it. So it was a really fun experience for both of us. It was very cool.
oh, wow, great. That's doing something together is always a good bonding experience.
Yes, it was
Um,
fun. We had a good time.
yes. So let's talk about it. Why do you think so many women wear, the feeling overwhelmed or stressed like a badge of honor?
I think they've probably been doing it their whole lives.
Mhm.
I think a lot of times high achieving women see their productivity as value. And they place most value on how much they can accomplish and how much they can get done. And that's how they see their output is measured, and that's how they see their value.
And I don't know about you, but for me, when a lot of my high achieving entrepreneurial come into sessions and they always talk about oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that and this, and it seems a lot, and sometimes they don't even realize that they're overwhelmed or even they're burnt out. So what are some of the early signs of burnout or being overwhelmed that women often overlook?
I think a lot of times I see like physical symptoms that women overlook. So like a little pain here, or a stomach ache that's been going on for 6 months, or they're just tired. They just feel like this is kind of what they signed up for. Well, I'm a CEO, so I'm supposed to feel this way. So they just kind of have normalized it for themselves over the years. But I would say a little like small physical symptoms, nothing that's so big that's going to impact their performance or their day to day. And also just that feeling of exhaustion, I think is pretty overlooked.
And do you think that those signs are the same as for men, or are there some differences?
I think that there are definitely some similarities and some overlap. I see a lot of times women eventually are more kind of able to ask for help, or sometimes it seems like men still are kind of not able to as quickly as they want it to be a lot worse before they may ask. And sometimes women will kind of come a little bit sooner, not too much sooner, but a little bit sooner. But you definitely see those kind of long-lasting physical symptoms and kind of feeling of exhaustion and overwhelm.
And when people do come to you for help, where are they at? What led them? What was that moment that they realized this isn't sustainable anymore? I need to reach out to help. Can you describe some moments so that some of our viewers can realize that maybe, or reflect on where they're at in their journey?
Yes, definitely. Well, I wish people would come when they're starting to feel overwhelmed, or they're just kind of noticing a couple symptoms here and there. But the reality of it is that a lot of people most likely will come to me when they're already kind of in that crisis mode. So they've messed up on a big contract or deadline. They've disappointed a client. Um, they feel disconnected from they yelled at their young child, and that's not something that they've done before. They have some kind of physical ailment that they haven't been able to figure out. So it's usually some like big thing. I had a woman once came to me after experiencing hearing loss that couldn't be explained. And that was directly related to her burnout. So it's usually like some big kind of catastrophic thing that people are like, okay, I don't want to live like this anymore. This is too much.
Mm, okay. And then do you think the reason why they don't realize it beforehand during the preventable before the crisis happened. Do you think that's because of they're not reflecting on their symptoms, they're not reflecting on where they're at in their life, or and how important is reflection uh, is important in terms of preventing burnout?
Oh, huge. Oh, like I said, I think it's just kind of normalized. A lot of the women that I work with, I'm sure the women you work with too, have just kind of always been high achievers. They've always done a lot in their lives. They've always like gotten good grades in school and been on, the sports teams, and they've kind of always like over functioned. So a lot of times it's just that's their baseline. The baseline is this very high functioning, over functioning person. So to have some kind of different insight about like, this is not realistic, this is not sustainable, I don't have the capacity for this anymore. That doesn't even cross their mind. The narrative is usually just one more thing. If I could just do one more thing, if I can just do this today, and then I don't have to do it tomorrow, and then we're pushing ourselves to the point of exhaustion and burnout.
Yes, yes. I have a course called You Habits, and part of that course is the first step in that is reflection. And oftentimes, when people come to me, both men and women, I tell them to pause. What are you doing? What do you want to do with your life? Who do you want to be? And what brings you joy and what makes you life fulfilling? I start out with that as a baseline question because oftentimes we're on autopilot and we're not even sure what we're doing is bringing us any
Mhm.
fulfillment. So I'm glad that you're finding that the women that are going into your sessions are uh, this will be helpful for them. It sounds like.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yes. No, they're gonna love this. It's gonna be really good for them.
And then sometimes many of your clients look for success from the outside, right? Getting accolades or getting things, so external validation.
Mhm.
What do you think are some hidden struggles that they share with you and that may not be so public and that they don't share to other
Mhm.
people?
Mhm. I think that's a really good question, and I think that I think a lot of women are tired, honestly,
Hmm.
that they're, keeping up with this very unrealistic expectation of themselves and of how they live their lives and how they do their work and how they parent their kids and how they interact with their friends and their partners. It's they're doing all the things for all the people all the time. And that's the
Hmm.
expectation that they have set for themselves and kind of what they, you know, how they present themselves to the world. And you can do that here and there, like bits and pieces, but to do that every day, all day of your life, I think people are just and then a lot of times I hear women say that if they don't do it, then nobody else will. And that sometimes
Mm.
relates to home and to work. That say, yeah, I could stop doing that, but then it's not going to get done. And then who's going to do
Mm.
it? And
Yeah.
I could teach somebody to do it, but that even seems hard to teach
Mm.
someone else to do what I'm already doing. So I hear that a lot.
So do you find that part of that conversation that part of what you help them reflect on or perhaps implement is to have conversation with their partner or their loved ones or their family regarding to balancing out those duties, or how do you approach that? Like, what do you how do you approach those first few steps of reflecting on how their family life is affecting them?
Well, family life is always affecting people, right? I mean, that's kind of why I have the hybrid model of personal and professional executive coaching, because I just find that like, whatever is going on at work, it's always reflective of what's happening at home and vice versa. So yeah, so we talk about both. We talk about struggles in the business and in the organization and kind of the leadership piece, but then also the home and who's in the home. Is it just you? Do you have a partner? Do you have children? Do you have dogs? Are you a caregiver to an elderly parent? Kind of what's happening outside of the home, I'm sorry, in the home that could be impacting the work. And we talk about some realistic and sustainable strategies to delegate, to eliminate, to have those assertive, hard conversations with the people in the home so that the workload can be a little bit more evenly distributed, which usually it isn't. So it starts off as not, and then, hopeful goal being that it gets more evenly distributed over time.
Yes, yes. And in my my habit course, I one of the steps that I take with them is to actually sit down with their partner. Like,
Hmm.
is this and reflect on what each of them want to do with their daily life, want to do with their life goals, and whether
Mhm.
those align first, and then go into the details of the actual day to day, right?
Mhm.
And how
Mhm.
it aligns and how it works out for the both, so that both people can be their best self. And oftentimes, I think we have to. A lot of people, men and women, come into to see me. They tend to feel like there's no other way to change their daily life, but when you break it down into exactly what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, there are rooms for improvement, or simply saying no.
Mhm.
So one of the things I like to do is, yeah, reflecting on what they do in their daily life and what is missing and what is not missing and what is too much. So that's one of the few steps that, one of the first few things I do with my clients. What do you do with, what are the some first few things that you do when they come in with you?
Well, we do an in-depth assessment,
Hmm.
and so that covers everything. It covers career history, family, goals. It covers intentions, values, and then we go into goal setting. So, like you mentioned, I mean, it's hard to navigate what somebody wants if we don't know where they want to get to.
Hmm.
So we do that, and then we kind of do like a rapid kind of response. So some things take a little bit longer, but like, what is the main? If you could do one thing today that would be, that would be helpful for you, what would that be? And then we kind of work through that step by step, and then we do the more long term things. I find that a lot of people, when they're already burnt out, working with even like the idea of working with somebody seems like another thing they have to do. So
Yes,
I don't
yes,
want it to be this like so involved day one I want to give you some instant relief. And
right.
sometimes that's talking about hiring someone at home to help you with things at home. Sometimes that's having this conversation that you've been dreading for 6 months with an employee. We talk through exactly what are you going to say to that person, and let's schedule a time and get that on your calendar. So it's sometimes just like it's like one thing that we sometimes it's an exercise, routine that they haven't been able to get into, and how do we start that? So really, it's just like a rapid relief kind of thing, and then we can go more into like the core values, the deeper things, and go from there.
Yes, yes. Yes, because if there's that one meeting they have to have with their boss that's on their mind, that's a barrier to other things in
Yes.
life, right? You
Yes.
gotta
Yes.
eliminate what's the barrier, the first barrier.
The
What's the
first
most
barrier.
important?
Exactly.
Yes, yes, yes.
Hmm.
I definitely agree with that. And then once you start getting into the smaller goals and smaller habits and the daily routine, do you use any technique and strategy to help them implement them?
I'm sorry, say that again. Help them to do what?
Like, let's say someone wants to pick up some exercise in their day. What strategies and techniques and tips do you use to help them incorporate that into their life?
Mhm. Okay, so first I would do kind of like an overall assessment of all the areas of wellness. Um, and then I always say, like, let's pick one thing, especially with, people who are high achievers, who have done a lot their whole lives. They're like, okay, they see all these goals, and they're like, okay, I want to do everything by tomorrow. And if it doesn't happen by tomorrow, then I'm just not, there's a lot of like black and white thinking. Like I'm either
Mm,
going to do it all perfectly by next week, or I don't want to do it at all. So we
mm,
kind of break down that cycle a little bit of kind of just that like negative narrative, like the story we tell
mm.
ourselves about ourselves, and that change will happen, but it takes time. And then we'll pick one thing, and if that thing is physical health, then we'll talk about realistic, sustainable strategies to incorporate physical health into your life. I feel like, I mean, I mean, you do have a whole course on habits, but habits, I think if you try to implement them in a way that doesn't make sense for your own life, like what works for me might not work for you, and what works for you might not work for me.
Yes,
So I'm like, okay,
yes,
what's your time like? Do you have the kids, or what time are they home from school? Do you have exercise equipment at home? Do you belong to a gym? Do you want to lift weights, or do you want to go to Pilates, or do you want to do this? And then you just pick like one thing, and it
yes,
has to be
yes,
like, okay, can you commit to twice a week doing this? Okay, yes. Okay, well, if that doesn't work this week, what happens next week? And then they say, well, I just don't work out ever again. No, you just try try something
it's
different the next week.
different.
Yeah. And
Yes,
and usually, we'll say, okay, once you have that down, and usually, maybe I usually say 14 days for a sustainable habit to kick in if you're doing it most days, and then build from there. So you can't
yes,
do. And I also like to talk about like motivation comes second. So people say, well, I don't have the motivation to change. I don't have the motivation to work out or drink water or say no or set boundaries. Well, usually the motivation comes second after the sustainable. You have to kind of like kick yourself in the butt a little bit for and just like make it happen, fake it till you make it, and then the motivation comes
Yes.
because you start to see the change and you start to see that
Yes.
it's working, and then the motivation comes second.
Yes. You bring up such important points right there. First is, which aligns with all of them. But the first point I think you notice is that you have to believe they can change. And that's something that I emphasize in my course and when I work with clients, that let's think about the last time you implement something and you had a change that was different. And then they're like, "Oh yeah, I do have a history of changing." I'm like, yes, you
Mhm.
do. Do you
Mhm.
believe that you can change? Right? That's
Mhm.
the one point that you brought up as well. And another thing is brainstorming.
Mhm.
Brainstorming ways you want to live, whatever goal it is, whether that is to exercise, whether that is to set boundaries with your partner. And I use this tool called the impact effort matrix. It's
Mhm.
actually adapted from the business side of of things, from hospital systems business
Mhm.
side. And we start brainstorming. Just put everything down on this chart that we have,
Mhm.
and then before judging whether you can do it or not, just put everything you think of that meets that goal of, let's say, going for a walk physical exercise,
Mhm.
right? So going for a walk is one idea. Maybe um, just standing up while working is another,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And then,
Mhm.
like you said, you have to revisit. If one thing doesn't work, let's revisit this brainstorming session and pick something else that might work. So I
Mhm.
feel like a lot of things that we're doing is it's very aligned.
It
It sounds
is. It
like
is. There's a lot of
yes, yes.
there's definitely a lot of similarities here. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that.
And also, you also mentioned motivation, right? And using the behavior to drive the motivation. And that kind of reminds me of when you pick up a new sports. I
Mhm.
like to pick up a lot of technical sports, and
Mhm.
I know that I'm not going to like it until I
Mhm.
actually get a little bit better at it. The
Right.
first, the first, I don't know, 5 or 10 practice sessions, it's gonna be
Pretty awful.
difficult. You're gonna
It's
hate
gonna
it.
be
You're
pretty
gonna hate
awful.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So but once you get into the flow of it, once you get a little bit better, you end up liking it. So
Mhm.
similarly with any other habits and behaviors, like sometimes you're gonna hate it when you first start, but let's
Mhm.
stick to it. Let's give it
Yes.
a good run before
Mhm.
you give up. And so
Yeah.
those are the things that what you said reminded me of.
Yeah. I like
Uh,
to talk to people kind of about like radical acceptance, and like radical responsibility of your own life. So I can give you all of these tools and we can have the sessions and I can give you all of the assessments, but ultimately it's up to that individual person to know that they have like radical responsibility of their own life. And if they can't or don't want to or aren't willing to make these kind of tough changes, it's tough at first, but then offers, kind of freedom at the end, then you're looking at what you're looking at, right? Like if you're not willing and open to shift some of these habits, that's fine. But then you're just going to kind of, this is what you're looking at.
mhm. Yes, yes. And sometimes it's a hard realization, but sometimes I have clients that start these series of and life changes with me,
Mhm.
but then it's evident that they can't prioritize it right now. It's like things get
Sure.
in the way.
Hmm.
And sometimes I do tell them to pause a bit, like, because they have to it has to be the right timing as
Yeah.
well,
Hmm.
because if that fits into their life. Like if you want to make some changes, you can make small changes. But if the timing is that you have a deadline and a project that is due in 2 weeks, it's not the best time for you to try to run this marathon.
Right.
Like
Right.
it's a
Right.
hard
Exactly.
realization, and that,
Hmm.
like, let's make it timely as well as relevant to what is currently in your life. Um,
Hmm.
and so if you were to say that. One thing that you really help people recognize before they get to you. Let's talk about the preventive part of the preventive of burnout and feeling overwhelmed. What would be that one tip you give people to, like, do?
Say no.
Say no. Okay.
Say no. I always say like the best leaders say no the most often. There's a really big kind of epidemic of like people pleasing and no boundaries and feeling like in order to be seen as good and valued and successful, you have to say yes all the time.
Mm,
Um, so saying no is huge.
yes.
Making time for yourself, making time in your life for yourself without guilt and shame, I think is very
Mm,
important.
mm.
Um, and instead of trying to like not do things, do more of the things that you should be doing or would like to do.
Mhm. Actually, could you tell me more about that? Can you give an example?
Right. So let's say somebody comes and they're burnt out. So, the typical advice would be, okay, don't do this and don't do this and don't do this and don't do this. And then you're spending all this time like, not emailing after hours and not talking, not having this kind of meeting and not getting into this type of activity. Well, so I say like swing the pendulum to the other side of what things do fill you and bring you peace and make you feel whole and make you feel validated internally, and maybe that's more time with your family, or maybe that's a scheduled vacation, or maybe that's an extracurricular activity, or maybe that's getting involved in some kind of community group like a church or I don't know, a women's group or a book club or just something. So I say instead of like focusing more on what not to do, swing the pendulum over to focusing more on what you like to do and get more reconnected with like that mindful and present time of the things in your life that bring you like sustainability and make you feel whole.
Yes, I love that. That reminds me of filling the cup. Oh, like
Yes.
putting the oxygen mask on, actually. Putting
Yes,
oxygen mask on
yes,
you first.
exactly,
You have to
exactly,
make you
exactly.
feel good first before you
Hmm.
can help other people, whether
Yeah.
that is in your job or your family, right? You have to put on oxygen
Yes,
mask first.
absolutely. Uh-huh.
Uh,
Agreed. Agreed.
yes, yes. And then it also reminds me that sometimes when I myself tell people that, they're like, "But I don't have the time of day to do something that fulfills me." What do you say to that? You know,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I say then you're gonna have to find the time, because then if you don't if you're coming to me for help and then you're saying, well, I don't have time to do anything different, then let's work on acceptance, because your life is going to look how it looks then forever.
Radical
So it's
acceptance.
not about like doing more things, it's about like more being, less doing. So it's
Mm,
being, right? Like we don't have to fill just because a time is open on your calendar doesn't mean you're available,
mm-hmm.
right? There's a lot of
Right.
things that people are doing just to do them, and not because they need to or they want to, just because it's the habit of doing.
Right. Yes. 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 And yes, one thing I emphasize is really analyze how you're spending your time, whether that's
Mhm.
needed or not needed, and you can delegate. Whether it's something you do need to do, and you just gotta accept that it's gonna be painful doing it,
Yeah. Hmm.
or it's something that you can eliminate and you can fill in that time with
Hmm.
something more joyful.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sometimes I'll ask people to do like a time audit where I'll say for 2 weeks,
yes. Yes.
track your time. I
Yes.
want to know
I call it
what
the
you're
time
doing.
analysis, but yes, same thing.
Yes. So yeah, same thing. So I want to know what you're doing from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, exactly what you're doing. And I also want you to turn on like the tracker on your phone that tells you how much time you're spending on your phone, all the apps. And people are shocked at what they're spending time on. And I'm like, okay, if you can spend 3.5 hours on Instagram a day, you can spend 20 minutes on a walk or drinking water.
Yes,
You know what I
yes,
mean? So, or sometimes people say,
yes.
I spent 16 hours this week responding to emails. And I'm like, whoa, let's talk about that. So sometimes just realizing patterns of behavior and realizing how you're spending your distracted time, is a huge indicator for people to be like, oh my gosh, like this is wild. I need to be doing something different.
Yes, actually, now you brought that up, there are tools that I tell people to use to track their time and tools for people to like monitor their time. But I haven't found like a perfect software tool where you can find out that you just spent 16 hours answering emails. So are there a tool that you recommend for that? And if not, you don't have to answer now. We can always
Mhm.
put it in the
Yeah.
caption later.
Mhm.
Tell yeah, just ping me what you
I will.
recommend
I
people.
will. I will.
Yes,
I'll
yes,
let you
yes.
know. I
Because I'm
will.
like, wait, how? Yeah, yeah, great. And All right, so for the sake of time, we are running short on time now, and this has been a wonderful conversation. So thank you so much. But before we go, um, I'd love to have you have a moment to say what is that you think is missing from this conversation on burnout and being feeling overwhelmed, and what do you think is missing in this conversation that you want to share?
Well, I just, I mean, we covered a lot in a very short amount of time. So, wonderful job on your end. Just to know, this is preventable. This is fixable. This is not, people who are suffering and struggling with burnout. It's very common, but you don't have to feel like this forever. There are ways out of it without giving up,
Yes.
the career that you worked so hard for.
And how about we define what burnout is? Let's go there.
Sure. So I usually use the World Health Organization has a definition that they came up with in 2019, and it's characterized by extreme exhaustion, depersonalization, and reduced efficacy at work. So
Okay.
specifically relating to your professional self.
And we know it's both professional and personal. And you and me both work in both areas
Mhm.
and to help people make some changes in those both regards. So leaving our guests for the afternoon, how would you want any message for our viewers to wrap up the conversation?
I would just say that know that you're not alone. Burnout's a real thing. It's not just a buzzword. I mean, it's been recognized by the WHO. It's been recognized by medical professionals, doctors, therapists, and it's a real thing. So if you think that you're experiencing it or are curious, definitely reach out to someone who can help you kind of figure that out, because it's preventable and it's treatable, and you don't have to live like that.
Yes, thank you so much, Alex
Yeah.
Stark, for joining us. And please check out her Instagram and please stay in touch. And thank you for having this conversation with me.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, have a good day.
Take care. You too. Bye.